what we're gonna do is, Enzo was good enough again to show up here with Scrappy, because Scrappy helps him too, a little bit of training time. But here we're gonna get more kind of in motion. You know, the idea is for you to be walking this time with Sadie and getting closer, and so just build up your confidence this way with more kind of direct contact with another dog. So again, mimicking, knowing as a service dog, you could encounter other service dogs, so this is just like anything, just to get your confidence up to say, okay. So when we start doing this exercise, I'm gonna bring her out in a second, you'll take full control of her, and you'll be able to sit down, relax at times, and so again, let's get a chair here too, but just some kind of back and forth with, at times just moving and just, you know, so just, this is just like a, I call it like circuit training, you know, a little, few minutes, relax, few minutes, you know, and for, you know, and just get both dogs very relaxed. But the idea is get as close as we can without, you know, just, but with both dogs relaxed. But it's how we do it, kind of angles and not kind of nose to nose or anything like that, but just kind of working the angles. So it gives us kind of a, you know, a better idea as to how invested they are. Because if you go straight in, you know, boom, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if you go side, you got to turn their head. And so that's when you tap a little bit and nudge. So I'll say Sadie's doing good. I've been working on the objects exercise. I posted a couple of videos on your site yesterday for objects and for the vehicle again. So I brought the RAV4 in. Just wanted to test, you know, and she's going.
Yeah, she goes right in.
Yeah, we're going right up in. So that's really good news there. So she's coming along really nicely. So just the objects thing is the big thing I'm working on big time. So that's coming too. But you can have a seat for a second if you want to. Grab questions? Do you remember what you were gonna?
How long per session? I think you may have told me once. How long per session should I work Scrappy? I generally work them when I take them out to potty, and I'll work them like maybe 45 minutes in the garage with like a 15-minute break in between, and then I work them going out in the afternoon for potty one more time. I try to get another 20 or 30 minutes in there. Is that sufficient? Because sometimes I feel like I'm not working them enough.
No, it's, a lot of times it's a journey because like a lot of we can only change so much every day.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
So you have to kind of recognize that first. Say, well, then because then if you do too much, it gets to the point of you're almost like just you're on a plateau anyway. You know, it's not saying it's not helpful, but sometimes I tell people sometimes it's better just to take a day off beyond just feeding and. They can go to the bathroom and go and do something completely different. Don't even think about, you know, training, right? Because that's when sometimes it's more helpful because, you know, that's when you really get things more clearly. Because sometimes it's almost like your mind can only handle so much information every day, right?
Over teaching.
Overall. So yeah, so you have to, especially with Scrappy, look at it has to really extend out because his need levels are like so high. You know? So the answer to that question is like you have to make that determination kind of on your own a little bit at this point.
Okay.
But generally, you know, I look at like I work it into whatever I'm doing anyway.
Right.
You know, so I try not to make it more like I gotta work that dog. You know, and you see the drudgery, right? More like saying, well, I take him to the bathroom anyway, or I took him to the bathroom. And I had to go to the bathroom with him anyway. Then I'll do at 5 minutes.
Okay, yeah,
you know,
that's good, yeah.
You know, and that's a better way to do it because then it's like, well, I was up there anyway, and I'm going to complete my thing, and then I go in and watch a movie, or you know, it helps you kind of get your life more organized, so it's not like, because it's the same thing. If I'm like, you got family, you got stuff going on, I'm not saying, but your dog wants to fit into your life, right? You know, it's a big training can be a really stressful thing, and then it's the same thing. Always try to work it in so that it doesn't seem that way. Try to add it on to something that, you know, I wrote the leash because I need to have Scrappy in the leash for the feeding part, or whatever. And then maybe before he eats, you know, I'll work 5 more minutes.
Yeah, work a random schedule versus a fixed schedule.
Yeah, that's right. I would say random and try to adjust it so it works into what your flow is.
Yeah.
And it would just it just will help you because the whole thing is one danger is it can happen so easily. Is before we know we feel kind of burnt out. You know, so it's like, man, I'd like, because it's just that happens, right? It seems too intense. Or your wife or family will notice it and say, you're out there with that stupid dog, you know. Not that, because it is more, it can be more intense, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it has to be at first anyway. I recognize that sometimes you just can't avoid that. It has to be, especially with him, it had to be more intense. But you're at a good level now with him where you could probably make those adjustments.
Yeah.
And make it work a little easier for you, so you don't have to be out there, you know, I just pause my movie, cause I have to go out.
Right.
that type of thing, right? Just
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm up there, just try to work it into your normal
Okay.
routine, cause that's what I do with the board and trains, I bring board and trains in here.
Right.
For the first 2 or 3 days, I'm normalizing that way, so it's like, because I know that I can't have really too intense anyway for some of these dogs, cause, you know, they're in a high level of challenge. So I'm like, okay, I take the dog to the bathroom anyway, and I'm just working some of it in. I'll add some stuff on, but, you know, I'll make it more part of the feed them, just make it more routine. And then I'll start to up the levels after 14 days, pretty intense. But then if I had the dogs here after the 14 days, say if I did, that would drop down into what I'm talking about right now.
Plateau.
Yeah, because that intensity level, the 2-week intensity level I'm going at is meant to really get them down. Like, cause I am ramping it up hard.
Yeah.
You know, not hard in a bad way or anything, but I'm out there a lot. And then, cause I know after, cause I want that dog to be at a certain level, and that dog goes home with the owners, cause then I wanna bring them into more of a normalization, you know what I'm saying? So that 14 days, I can do that cause of my level of what I can do.
Yes.
But for you, that 14 days would be like 5 years.
Yeah.
You're like, no, that 14 days would be like.
I feel like, that's why I asked the question, I feel like.
Yeah, but no, it'd be maybe like 6 weeks, right?
Yes.
Of more intense,
And
compared to
that's
my
fair.
2 weeks, right?
That's fair.
You know, I'm
That's
just
fair.
guessing, it could be less than that. And then, you know, and then just kind of go from, just like Anthony, the guy who's helping train me, when he was coming out, having to do some board trains for me. And he was just starting to help me do some stuff, but he'd come out, had a board and train, he had a board and train, and he comes out and I said, how's it going, Anthony? Man, it's like my dog's like work, man, it's like I'm going. I said, really? I take every other day off, pretty much. What? I said, I can float a little bit, because it's just part of my thinking, right?
Right.
He's gotta think it all, you know, that's part of the what I'm talking about. Over time, it just becomes a normal type of thing. So all to say, just try to add it into your thing. But you're doing good. And I'll get your spelling right in your name, so I can get that certificate there after too. I'll get that done up.
Now, is Scrappy done with his training completely?
He went through, I mean, he's like that intense and super intense dog. And so he went through the 2 weeks of boarding with me originally, so intense that I actually had Enzo, which typically I don't do, but had Enzo come here, but every day with me, because I knew I had to process it through him. I knew I couldn't get away with the typical me take the dog, and with like a home visit and, you know, a little bit of that, like get people in a good way, couldn't happen that way. It was way too intense. I knew that the dog would change for me, Scrappy would change for me, but I knew that he still would be in terrible shape even after 2 weeks, unless I really got him hooked into it. So he hooked in with me for 2 weeks. What's been happening is that he's been coming like once a week basically, getting some extra training in, kind of hooking on to what I'm doing. So it's been, since we started though, it's been, how long has it been? A few months? How long has it been?
It's
A few
been,
months?
I like to call the ball on maybe September-ish, October-ish. And, Scrappy, you know, he's through Dale, Scrappy and I have really, you know, bonded. I have a long way to go, with him, but, initially, the dog was, I had got the dog in